Hi, this is Megan with Beadaholique, and today I'm going to show you how to bead weave this sleek little beaded toggle bar and attach it to your peyote bracelet. So as you can see, it's just beaded right into there. It's actually attached, but it looks like it's just all one piece, and it gives it a really super clean and modern look. So I've got a strip of peyote stitch. It's even count flat peyote, and I did not, of course, make this big enough to be a whole bracelet. It's much too small, but I just made a piece to show you kind of what you do on each end. So go ahead, and if you don't already know how to do flat even count peyote, then watch the video that we have on that first, and go ahead and make the bulk of your bracelet first. And you're going to want to create a long enough piece for your bracelet that you have almost as long as you want. So basically what we're gonna do is gonna add about 1/2 inch. So if you want your bracelet to fit, really tight, just go ahead and wrap it around and leave yourself 1/2 inch. Otherwise, measure how long you want it and stop when you're 1/2 inch shy. I'm going to show you how to do this. This piece is 24 beads wide. You can adjust it to a narrower or wider piece, but I'm going to give you the numbers that I'm using for this size, which is the same size as this one here. So when you finish your strip of peyote for your bracelet, don't cut the thread off. And what you're going to do first is add a little piece that you'll use to attach your toggle bar to. If you're doing a pattern, make sure that you keep following the pattern, and you can use like a bead graph paper. You can find those online if you just do an internet search, and you can plan it out so that it all still follows the pattern. So what you're going to do is, starting right where your needle's already coming out, you're going to weave back over to the middle. I'm going to make my little ladder piece 4 beads wide, which means that I need to get over to the right spot on there. So I just need to use the 4 middle beads for that. And so you're just going to weave right through your top row. If you're doing 24, then you would just subtract 4 and know that you need to divide that by 2 for each side, and you're going to skip 10 beads before you start weaving. So if you use a different width, you can go ahead and just figure it out that way. So I skipped my 10 beads. Now I'm going to do a 4 bead wide strip of even count peyote, and I'm going to do this 6 rows long. I'm just using a different color here so that you can see where I'm adding it on. And all of this you can change the width if you want something more delicate. You just don't want to make it too wide so that you can't move the bar a little bit to get it into the loop that you add on the other side. You could even make them dainty and add 2 onto a wider piece of beadwork. So you can play with the numbers. I'm just giving you the numbers that I'm using. And I'm also using 10-0 Delica beads. If you could use a different size and use the same numbers, it would just change the scale. So your whole piece would be smaller or larger. So I've added 6 rows, of 4 beads wide. That's going to be the piece that I attach my toggle bar to. So to make your toggle bar, you need to do 10 rows of flat even count peyote, and I've made my bar 18 beads wide. And you can change that, adjust it a little bit up or down Just if you want to make it easier, you want to use an even number of rows so that you don't have to do the jog and the odd count peyote. So once you've made your little rectangle 10 rows wide, all you're going to do is fold it in half. And you can see I've already tied off and trimmed the first part here, the tail, make it easier to deal with. So fold it in half, and then you're going to take your threads on the top. You're going to go straight into the bead on the bottom. You're just going to do what's called zipping it up, which is a common term when you're working with peyote stitch. So just every other bead will be side to side, and you're just going to use that last row that's sticking up, and you zip it up just like a zipper. And when you get to the end, don't forget, you also need to go back down into that next bead to create the thread bridge across the top and keep it closed all the way. And then just weave back through a couple of the beads and then tie off and weave in your ends. And if you need to know how to tie off and weave in your ends, we do have a video on that too. I'm not going to show it now. Okay, then you're going to go back to your little ladder piece here that's going to attach to that toggle, and line up the toggle and the piece there so that the tops of this part fit into a depression in the beads. So you're going to put it in a spot where it fits right into the beadwork like that. So keep your eye on which bead would be right next to where your thread's coming out of, which is going to be this one. And go ahead and stitch through that bead. And then you're going to go through the next bead on the base there. And you can do this loose and then tighten it up afterwards. It makes it a little bit easier to get your needle where you need to. And then you're going to go through the next bead on the toggle bar. And the next bead on the base. And go ahead and pull that tight. Then you're going to go through one more bead on the base, right in that same line. And you're going to just tie off and weave in the end of that thread as well. And you can see once you tighten that up, you have that nice cohesive beaded look. It looks all one piece, and that's a really nice and clean toggle bar. You could make a loop, just a beaded loop, just string beads to fit around it and put it on this end. Or you can make this enclosed rectangular opening. So I'm going to show you how to make this opening, but if you want to, you could also just do a simple loop. So we're going to go to the other end. In order to make the hole in the peyote stitch, this needs to be done in two pieces. So you're going to have this top part is an additional piece that you stitch, and then these side pieces here, one of them will be stitched onto this base and the other part will be stitched onto the top. So go ahead and do a piece of even count peyote the same width as your bracelet. So this one's 24 beads wide, and I did 10 rows. And then you're going to continue at the end of your 10 rows with a brand new row, and you're only going to make it 6 beads wide. So I finished that up before here, so I have 5 rows that are only 6 beads wide, and that's going to give you the side of the opening here. So I did that in a different color so you could see it. And then now what we're going to do is go ahead and attach that to the end of the bracelet. So you're going to line that right up and zip that closed. So just line up the beads where they fit together and stitch through them. And don't forget to go back into the base to secure that last bead together. Okay, now what we're going to do is weave through till we get over to this side, and we're going to add 5 rows, 6 beads wide onto this part here too. So go ahead and just weave through that original last row, the last couple rows there. And the way I determined 6 beads wide for this was I actually did some experimenting, but what I found is that for the 18 bead wide toggle bar, a 12 bead wide opening worked really well. So about 6 beads less, but you might have to fiddle with that if you're adjusting the length a lot. But if you're just adjusting it a couple of beads, I would try making your opening about 6 beads shorter. Okay, so once you get right next to the 6th bead in, we're going to go ahead and do 5 rows right along there. And when you have your side piece built up, you'll see that that top part will just fit right in. So once again, sew those up by just going through each bead on each side. And just right into that next bead on the top row. And that's all there is to it. All you'll do now is just tie off and weave in the ends. And you would have, of course, an actual bracelet with length bracelet, but that's the basics for how you make that toggle clasp. And you can see that it's a really nice cohesive look.